Now, it's worth pointing out that there are, Tim, you've described a bunch of different kinds of ways of pre-purchasing resources, and they're all sort of subtly different in a way that can be confusing, especially if you've never seen this stuff before. In particular, reserved instances tend to be kind of all over the place in terms of the sorts of terms that they offer.
Well, you've got, reserved, when you come into the process of reserving instances, and you have to do instance type, and you have to do location, and you've got to do duration, and then you'll have reserved instances for services, like reserved RDS instances, or reserved Elasticache or OpenSearch instances, or Redshift, and savings plans are a little bit different. You can do compute savings plans, you can do instant savings plans, and then you can also do savings plans specifically for SageMaker.
Right.
But even beyond that, there's other kinds of reservations you can make. If you're going to do, pre-provision capacity in DynamoDB, that's a reservation. If you're going to do provisioned IOPS in EBS, that's also a reservation, right? So it's not just you've reached a spend level, now you should make reservations. It's how are you spending it? How are you using it? And are you willing to commit to using it?
Right. And I think part of that comes down to like your ability to predict your workload, right? I mean, and what we often say to clients is, if you have a baseline, you should be provisioning at least up to that baseline on reservations, because if it's never going to drop below a certain point, it behooves you to just tell Amazon that through those upfront commitments. And actually, I say the word upfront, but there are different payment options here as well. Right? The more money you put on the table at the beginning of the term, the deeper your discount is. But you have the option to purchase things like reserved instances and savings plans with no money up front at all, and just paying them every month in exchange for some amount of discount, which can still be pretty considerable, especially if you're talking about, a company that is, again, quote unquote, only spending $10,000 to $15,000 a month in AWS.
Absolutely. If you have an auto scaling group, and the minimum size of the auto scaling group is 1, reserve 1.
For sure.
Like it's always going to be on. It's always going to be there. Just reserve it, and then everything else can be on demand.
And I think it's also worth pointing out, particularly with EC2, that there aren't any kind of pre-purchasing agreements that apply to Spot. And this is something that people kind of get a little confused by. They go, well, wait a minute, I've got on demand, like I can pay for that sort of stuff for on demand. Why can't I do it for Spot? And the answer, honestly, is because Spot is already about as cheap as it's going to get. And so, and this is also true even when you start getting up into fairly high spend levels. You don't really get a discount on Spot because they're already kind of operating by squeezing every ounce of juice out of the proverbial lemon.
And while you can't reserve capacity with a reservation, right? You're committing to spending. There is a certain amount of thing where there's a customer experience aspect of it. Is like, I can reserve Spot, but you're not always going to get it.
Right. There's that too.
So yeah, you'd be spending literally a month for something you may not be able to use.
Right.
Folks aren't usually too happy about that.
No, no, especially if they're spending the kind of money that people typically spend in AWS.